I am the owner of Local Table Tours, a staunch supporter of the Flatirons Food Film Festival. And welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. Bear with us through any technical glitches, as we've been known to have them, but hope we don't have them this evening. If you're enjoying dinner at home with us this evening, please share your Make Hummus Not War photos. Post them on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter using our hashtags that you will see in the chat below. We have multiple hashtags and they have lots of F's in them, but we're going to retweet them, repost them, and share them. So please take photos and have fun with us tonight. I'd like to tell you what to expect this evening. So we have a guest speaker, Joan Nathan, and she's going to be introducing Make Hummus Not War. We're going to watch the movie through Vimeo using the URL that you've been emailed. It's in the chat below. We're going to put it everywhere so that you don't get the wrong message. You can tune in and watch it. And the password will be there. You need the password. After the movie's over, we're going to return here to Zoom, and we're going to have a speaker discussion and Q&A with Joan Nathan, Chef Daniel Asher, and esteemed 5280 food editor, Denise Mickelsen. You can contact us at any time during this event through the chat, and one of us is going to get back to you. If you have any questions or problems or anything like that, we have support staff standing by. You can submit questions for the speakers, and you can submit them during the film. So if you think of something while you're watching it, go ahead and put that in chat, or wait until after while we're doing the live Q&A. And they will answer those questions. I need to thank some people here. So I'm going to thank Baba Grill and Basta in Boulder, Ashkara in Denver, Sugarbeet in Longmont, and Moxie Bread Company in Louisville for participating by offering hummus dinner specials. I also need to thank our sponsors. So our Silver Spoon sponsors are Big Red F Group, Black Cat Bistro, Bramble and Hare, Highland Honey, Local Table Tours, Pack a Fork, Root Marketing and PR, and Savory Spice Shop Boulder. Our other sponsors are Boulder County Farmers Market, International Film Series, and Slow Food Boulder County. Also, a very special thank you to Joan Nathan, Daniel Asher, and Denise Mickelsen for speaking tonight. But before we jump into the movie tonight, I would like to tell you what we have planned for next week. So next week is our last of the 4 series that we're doing, and we're doing Hot Doug's, the movie. So it's a look into a unique cultural and culinary institution in Chicago that grew from one man's desire to create a better hot dog. So join us next Friday, May 15th, again, 6:30 Mountain Time. Our speakers are going to be Doug Sohn, who is the subject of the film, and Mr. Sausage himself, Jim Pittenger of Biker Jim's Gourmet Dogs here in Denver. Our featured restaurants are Black Belly and Mustard Glass Stand in Boulder, Biker Jim's Gourmet Dogs in Denver, Lulu's Barbecue in Louisville, and there will be more to come. For the home cooks, we recommend River Bear American Meats Hot Dogs. River Bear American Meats is a Denver company started by Chef Justin Brunson, and his hot dogs, amongst other meats that they create, but his hot dogs are uncured beef, lightly smoked, and they're clean label dogs made from only the good stuff. You can purchase them in Alfalfa's in Boulder, Lever's Locavore and Marzick's in Denver, and other locations. You can find that info on their website right now. And we're going to be providing some recipes if you want to make some ultimate hot dogs at home and it's nice weather next week and grill. It'd be really fun to participate that way as well. Who doesn't love a great gourmet dog? Tune in next week and let's make Hot Doug's the movie another success. Tickets are on sale now and it will sell out just like all of these have. And now I would like to introduce Joan Nathan. So she is a Jewish food authority and a James Beard Award-winning cookbook author. Joan Nathan is a frequent contributor to the New York Times and other publications and has produced television documentaries on the subject of Jewish cuisine. She's the author of 11 books, including Jewish Cooking in America and The New American Cooking. both of which won James Beard Awards and IACP Awards. So welcome, Joan.
Okay. Okay, there. Oop, all right. This is called coronavirus quarantine hair. Okay. Well, I wish I were in Denver. I'm in Washington, D.C. at my home, and I'm thrilled to be here. First of all, I just want to tell you that you're in for a treat. I don't want to say much about this film, but believe me, he's all over the world, and he's got some of my favorite people in it. Quite interesting. But let me just tell you, I started to like hummus in 1970. I'd never heard of it before. I went to Israel, and I was working for the mayor of Jerusalem, Teddy Kollek, who I worked for almost 3 years. And it was a time when the city was really emerging from the '67 war. I was a foreign press attaché, and I was really learning about the Jews, Christians, and Muslims in the city. So that has been something that I've always done. And in so doing, I ate hummus in West Jerusalem. I ate it in East Jerusalem. And I came home and got married a year later. And my husband and I wanted to have hummus at our wedding. Well, the caterer had never heard of hummus. In fact, nobody really had heard of hummus. When I made my hummus, somebody thought that it was so good that we gave the recipe to the caterer at our wedding in Providence, Rhode Island. Somebody came to our wedding, liked it so much, he said I should sell it to Zabar's, which I hope you know it in New York City. And I didn't do it, but clearly you'll see in the film who did do it. Sabra did. It was an Israeli bus driver, a cab driver in New York City, and started in 1986. And in fact, in 1970, all canned chickpea products were called garbanzo because Goya products was Spanish owned and had come during this Spanish Civil War to New York, and garbanzo is the word for chickpea in Spanish. Anyway, I really don't want to talk to you more about it. I think one other thing I think you should know as you're looking at this film, chickpeas have been around. First of all, they're the earliest known protein in the Western world. And they're also, they don't need a lot of water. So they're something that really grows throughout the Middle East. 12,000 years ago, they found, chickpeas from 12,000 years ago in Jordan. And the myths of Gilgamesh mentioned chickpea flour. So I believe that not hummus with sesame, but hummus with chickpeas and maybe a little bit of vinegar were around before biblical times. If they were in the book of Gilgamesh, porridge was what poor people or most people ate for breakfast. And it wouldn't have been, I looked at the earliest known cookbook when I was writing my last book called King Solomon's Table, and they did mention have chickpeas in there. But I'm sure that they ate this gruel, which is hummus, for breakfast because it gave them protein. And when you're poor, you're not going to eat just vinegar. And it was mentioned in the Bible. The book of Ruth talks about this chickpea dip that they gave to workers in the fields. And if you were just given bread and vinegar, you sure wouldn't want to work. But sesames came much later to the Middle East. Anyway, that's all I'm going to tell you as a preface to the movie. And Megan, take it away. Oh, where is she? Megan?
I think I'm back. Yeah, no technical glitches here, folks.
Okay.
That was great. Thanks, Joan. That was funny because oh gosh. Am I
Okay.
unmuted now?
You're fine.
We're great. Okay. Thanks, Joan. So everybody, look at your clocks right now because this movie is 1 hour and 7 minutes, and we're going to take a 10-minute bathroom break. So 1 hour and 17 minutes from this time, which is 1 minute before 8 o'clock. So it's going to be about 8 o'clock by the time I shut my mouth here. I'm going to wrap it up here real quick. Come back about 8 o'clock. We're going to reconvene with our discussion in our Q&A. So if you forgot your film access information, it should be in the chat below. And enjoy the movie. It's super fun, and enjoy your dinner. We'll see you in 1 hour and 17 minutes. Okay, that stopped. Yeah, I was. Am I on? Are we recording?
Yes, you're on, Megan.
Okay, we're on. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. It's a little confusing on this end. Okay, welcome back, everyone. That was a really fun movie. I really enjoyed it and feel like I learned a lot. And I think that this next part of the evening is going to be even more educational because the people involved know a thing or two about hummus. So before I introduce tonight's speakers, I want to remind you, you can join the conversation. So please do, because it makes it more fun. In your chat down below, type in your questions. What are they? Ask people. They want to answer them. So just please do participate if you have something to ask. So our moderator tonight is Denise Mickelsen. So she is the food editor of 5280 magazine and oversees all of 5280's food-related coverage. So she is the person who knows everything that's going on around town here in the Mile High City, and we are so fortunate to have her with us here tonight. She holds a culinary arts degree from the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City and has been an editor at Saveur, Martha Stewart Living, Fine Cooking, and Craftsy. Denise has won awards for digital food videos as well. Our local chef and speaker is Daniel Asher. So he is a chef and partner of Ashkara and Mother Tongue in Denver and River and Woods in Boulder. He is committed to sustainability and local food. Daniel's menus are sourced from the most honest and local ingredients available, and everything that he creates is delicious. And of course, let's welcome back Joan Nathan.
Okay. Hi. Joan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see myself.
I can see you,
Oh, good.
which
All
is good. Well, hello. And hi, everybody out there watching. I'm Denise Mickelsen. We're waiting. I'm sure Daniel Asher will be here soon. And in the meantime, we'll talk to Joan Nathan. But first, actually, Daniel, hi. I can't hear you. We're going to get all this sorted, this technical stuff sorted out, and then we'll... Daniel, yes?
Yeah. Hear me?
Daniel.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Great.
Good. Okay, well, first, the very first thing before we get to talking about this amazing documentary and talking to Joan and talking to Daniel is that Julia of the Flatirons Food Film Festival has asked me to really quickly, given my role at 5280 Magazine, to discuss quickly what our independent restaurants are going through right now in the middle of this terrible pandemic. So just a quick little non-hummus side note. Daniel would be able to speak to this probably even better than I. He is literally in the trenches. But from what I'm understanding and from the people that I am talking to, we are right in the middle of it. It's not a good situation. We're not going to make light of it. Many restaurants are closed. Many restaurants are holding on through takeout and really creative, actually, pivots, as everyone is calling them, to deliver everything from meal kits to alcohol and flowers for Mother's Day. And they are feeding frontline healthcare workers. They are feeding each other. There are hundreds of thousands of hospitality workers in Colorado alone that are all of a sudden unemployed through no fault of their own. So the industry is feeding their own. They are feeding those in need. They are helping food banks. They are helping our, hospital workers, as per usual, in my opinion, anyway. And if you know anyone who works in hospitality, they are taking care of everyone as they try to also survive. So if there is anything you can possibly do to support them, I would say buy merchandise, buy gift cards, get takeout, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you can do. If you are financially strapped and can't do any of the above, then send a social media message, send a text, drop a note by. These people are working, 20 hours a day, and they are really stressed, and there's a lot going on, and little notes of appreciation from their community keeps them going. And I'm sure Daniel can speak more to that, but that is what I would recommend. Yes. Okay. So unless people have questions about that, I think we should get right back to the movie because it was really fun. It was kind of amazing. And I thought maybe to orient ourselves, Joan and Daniel, you could tell us a little bit about your family background so we know where you are coming to this documentary from, and your experience. Joan, maybe we start with you. What is your family background?
Well, my father was born in Germany. My mother was born in the United States. Um, I was raised as a Reformed Jew, with real interest in Israel. I didn't have it particularly, my father did. And I went to visit, as I said before, in 1970. And I just felt that I wanted to visit, but that when I got there, I really felt it was a little bit like the Wild West for me in those days. And I went back there and I got this great job working for the mayor of Jerusalem and stayed for 3 years.
And that was 1970, because some people might have missed. I'm getting the feeling some people missed that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, and as such, that's where I was introduced to hummus. As I said before, nobody knew about hummus in the States before then. It wasn't, and I think it had a lot to do with Peace Corps volunteers coming back. People visited, in the mid 60s, they had master charge so that you could, I think the first was Diners Club.
Right.
So, and then they had these flights that were, I forget what they were called, but they weren't commercial flights that you could get on. They were much cheaper. You'd always fly through Iceland, but you could go, to places like Israel. But, I had gone to Europe. My parents sent me there because I wanted to learn foreign languages. But anyway, so I learned about hummus then, and I came back and brought it with me. And, have loved it ever since. But I think I like it more now in a way. There wasn't this hummus craze then.
There's an entire culture around it, obviously.
Right, exactly. And also, I think it was very rare to be able to even find chickpeas. We called them garbanzos because that's what Goya Foods called them. And they were canned. Anyway, so I started making them, and somebody told me I should sell them to Zabar's, but I didn't. And Sabra.
Is that a regret?
But and then, well, and I was never entrepreneurial in that way. But the Sabra hummus was a cab driver in New York, an Israeli cab driver who had the idea.
That's incredible.
Right. I mean, it's time, what are people interested in? And now, of course, between 2017, there's such a, in 2018, there was such a demand. It was just in the Atlantic last week for hummus that there was like almost twice the demand for it.
Isn't that incredible?
A non-meat protein,
Yeah.
and it's very healthy. It doesn't require a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
actually, I made, I don't know if you can see them, but I made these roasted chickpeas to watch the movie.
Oh, you did? See,
Yeah.
I was super lucky. I got to have Daniel's food. I went and picked
I
up.
would love that. Daniel, I want to have your food. I keep getting it in the
So I watched the movie the first time earlier this week because I wanted to orient myself and see what it was all about. And it was so entertaining. And I started writing down questions, but I was starving. All I wanted was hummus after watching it, of course. And tonight I got to do that. So I went and picked up ashkara and it was beautiful. I put it on Instagram, of course. And it's, you know, it was hummus and muhamara and baba ganoush and beautiful pita crisps. And I shoveled quite a bit of that in while I was watching the movie the second time, and it was a treat. Daniel, let's go.
That's great.
So what
Thanks
is
for
your,
thanks for getting beautiful to-go food from
oh,
Ashkara tonight.
thank you. It's no hardship for me. It was fantastic.
I'm at River and Woods now. We're just finishing up our to-go dinner service, but ironically, I'm sitting on a bucket of some tahini
Are you?
as a chair, which is actually pretty funny since we're
What
talking
type of
about it.
tahini do you use?
Yeah, good question.
So my background, my father was born in Bucharest, Romania, Eastern European, right on the border with Hungary. My mom is from Canada. I was born in Montreal, so grew up, Canadian, but with a huge influence of Middle Eastern, and that region is one of the largest Arabic populations in North America. So I grew up immersed in, eating shish taouk and shawarma and having, hummus and pita when I was like 5, 6 years old. Fried eggplant, pomegranate, these were all normal flavors for me when I was really little. And my first experience with hummus in Israel, I was 19. My grandfather passed away, and I accompanied my grandmother over to Israel. She there and kind of wanted to restart her life with her daughter, my aunt. So I was 19 years old, and my cousins took me to Akko, which is this beautiful port city, a little bit outside of Nahariya, and wonderful melting pot of Muslim Jews, Christians, High Temple, one of the main headquarters is there. So really interesting cultural immersion of very interesting religions sharing the same space, similar cultural immersions, and stood in line. There was this huge market area and waited for this experience, and there was this, amazing gentleman sitting basically on the ground with the largest mortar and pestle I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
Just hand mashing chickpeas and making hummus, and I got this bowl of it warm, and they just handed me a spoon, and I was like, I'm eating it with a spoon, and they were like, trust us, and I took a spoon of this hummus. It completely blew my mind, and then smeared it with some pita. I mean, it was like really a transformative experience for me. At the time, I started cooking when I was 14. So I was like in professional kitchens, and it was a completely transformative experience as far as flavors, expression. And a few years later, I realized I started working with ingredients that had a denomination of origin stamp, like prosciutto or Parmesan. I started thinking, here in the States, what we eat is basically chickpea dip. If you think about it, it's very hard to have that authentic experience that you would have in the Middle East of that actual whipped, texturally, heavenly hummus experience.
The temperature. You were the first one to tell me about that as you were getting ready to open Ashkara, about how it is not meant to be a refrigerated food. It is supposed to be warm, or at least room temperature. And once you try it that way, you are ruined forever. Supermarket tubs.
Yes, it has to be made every day, and just goes from the the blender, whatever you end up using, to get that beautiful light fluffy texture. It goes from there to the plate to the guest, to your mouth to a piece of pita, end of story. So like, eating hummus that was made weeks before that's been sitting on a refrigerated shelf is a different product.
Right.
Well, also,
Still could be delicious, enjoyable, but it's a different product.
but I don't think hummus lasts very long if you do it without any preservatives. So you have
Correct.
to eat it quickly because I think it's the pH factor. Just,
Yes.
it's
It's
spoiled.
highly perishable.
And what's funny is that now everybody's going back to what the experience that you had when you were 19 years old. They've suddenly had this experience, and they're making warm hummus. Like I was surprised in the movie that the one hummus place I would have gone to, and I don't know why he didn't, was Abu Shukri in the old city of Jerusalem, which is really it's near Lena's, but they don't use plastic plates. That was what I didn't like about going to Lena's. But every morning you go in there early, everybody's scooping up this hummus to go to work.
Wiping hummus.
And it's
It's breakfast.
and it's just delicious. And when you go into Akko too, in that I forget what it's called, the hummus place. There are two of them. That's all they serve.
Oh, it's hummus Saeed, and they like, they have a hummus battle basically. Who has the best hummus?
And these are workers' restaurants, and you have no idea how old they are.
The restaurants?
Yeah, I think that this has gone on for centuries and centuries because people only ate gruels, and that's what people ate. It was made out of millet or flour, or it's like.
Or in more Eastern countries, congee and out of rice, any carbohydrate or protein.
Breakfast was, but here it was chickpeas, it was hummus. And and now of course you have to think about what kind of tahini you have. Tahini depends on how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
What kind of, like
exactly.
I make mine with preserved lemons. What kind of lemons do you use? And but I think Daniel, do you agree with me that the most important thing really is blending that hummus, that warm hummus, and cooking the chickpeas long enough so that they're really soft, and then pounding it, pounding the garlic, but till it's
A little bit of toasted cumin is always phenomenal, but the texture, it needs to almost resemble an aioli. I mean, and it really needs, when you take that spoon and swirl it in the bowl, I mean, it needs to create this beautiful inset, round, like, basically an opening, and then you fill that with olive oil. At Ashgar, we use a beautiful Seca Hills olive oil from an indigenous Native American reservation in California. We also have some really good Turkish olive oil and smoked Spanish paprika and fresh parsley. But I like the smoked notes from Spanish paprika, and it adds a little, another cultural mashup of bringing in pimentón de la vera from Spain. So you've got a couple different cultural experiences dancing on your palate as you take that first bite.
right.
Well, and you serving it, Daniel, the way I got it tonight was with, crunchy pita chips. I mean, it was a really wonderful experience, that fluffy, soft, really smooth hummus against the crunchy chips instead of the soft, warm pita.
Right, the textural difference.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, our kitchen team at Ashgar is amazing, and that restaurant has been living in my brain for like 50 years, and I've had all these expressions of that style of food I wanted to do. And we opened December of 2018, and it's just been amazing. We have an incredible team and a great community in Denver that has been very supportive since we opened, and also very supportive now since we started navigating the coronavirus, mid-March, and had shut down and transformed to a to-go only business model. But Denver has been phenomenal in supporting restaurants during this time, as you said, Denise. It's been devastating and also inspiring.
Well, actually, I wanted to go to you, Joan, and say, so you've been to Lena. Were there other hummus shops in the movie that you have actually been to? And Daniel, have you been to any that were in the movie?
Well, I've been to, several of them. I've been to the one in Abu Ghosh. I've been to several of them that have been entered in Jerusalem. I've been to the one in Tel Aviv, Abu Hassan. I think I've been all over actually. These ones that they've
Well,
mentioned.
what's your ultimate? Daniel had this experience at the market when he was young, you know, and when he was 19. Do you have a ultimate hummus memory?
I think my ultimate is really going to Abu Shukri, who is somebody who's done this for generations in the old city, right near the Via Dolorosa.
Mm.
And you go in there and all they have is hummus. And he does have, I thought it was a mixer, but it might not be a mixer. Might be like a large Roku,
Mm.
you know,
Like a food processor.
right, to mix but a strong one. I've been doing mine in I'd like to do it in the mortar and pestle, but
Yeah.
I do it in a Vitamix, and that really
That'll
is,
do it.
yeah, that'll do it. But
We've got
so
a pretty
I really,
powerful Roku called a Blixer, a star that we use, which is insane. But
you do the same
it's
thing.
also like a $3,500 blender. So not
Not
recommended for
professional.
home
That's
use.
okay. That's okay.
Yes.
But and so you know, as a food writer, I like to show people how to make things. So the first time that I wrote a recipe was in my book, The Flavor of Jerusalem. That was the book that Otto Lengi used,
Yeah.
sort of a guide to Jerusalem. And we didn't know each other then, but we became friendly afterwards. He read,
Oh.
he looked at these recipes in Hebrew. That book, I still use the same thing. I use garlic.
Okay.
That one I used canned chickpeas because I didn't know you could even get dried
Dried.
chickpeas in the States.
Mm.
And yeah, and you know, and tahina. But now there's all kinds of tahina. I saw black tahina, black sesames made into tahina in the old city last time I was there.
That would
Wow.
make an interesting colored hummus. Well,
That's
and
great.
And
Daniel, Joan wanted to know what kind of tahina you use to make your hummus.
I use Sum tahina. They're single origin Ethiopian white humara sesame seeds. It's phenomenal stuff.
what name?
Great. Soom, Soom.
Oh yeah, I use them too. I went to Ethiopia with them actually.
Oh, did you
That's
really? Wow, that's great.
You know, it was really an amazing trip. We went there for the sesame harvest a few years ago.
Oh
And
my gosh, that must have been amazing.
it was amazing. We went to this a tiny town, I forget, Humira it was called, and it was where the center of sesame harvest were. And we saw them just taking the sesames and shaking them on the tarps, all these beautiful Ethiopian people,
Wow.
and then drying them and then grinding them. It was quite an event.
That's
Really,
incredible.
That's remarkable.
yeah, it was great. It was one of the
Well,
best experiences of my life.
a lot of our questions are actually about how you make it, and I was going to kind of save questions for the end, but I don't think anyone's going to mind if we kind of do it as we go. We can have some of my questions and also the people watching. So some people are asking, let's see, Trenton is asking about the kind of beans used as a topping for hummus and what flavor do they contribute to the hummus? If either of you can speak to all the different toppings. There were so many. I've
Well,
had
there's
lamb,
fava beans.
yeah.
Favas are very traditional. There's a fool, a style, I think it's FUUL, and is raised fava beans, which is phenomenal. There's you can do fried crispy chickpeas back on top. There's harissa paste. I mean, there's it's like asking what you put on a sandwich. It's like thousands of options to top hummus.
Oh,
And there's breakfast hummus, lunch hummus, dinner hummus. It's a high protein, vegetarian, plant-based superfood that is one of the most ancient things ever and is now becoming, a very sought after wellness style of experience. But it's really been one of the best fuels for humanity thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. And the thing is that fava beans, a lot of Jewish people are totally allergic to them. They can die from it.
Oh,
And it's from the time of Pythagoras.
did not
And
know that.
in the ancient times, and not just Jewish, but Middle Eastern.
Oh.
and they get a stomach, so that's why falafel in Israel is made only from chickpeas, not fava beans. But Jordan and Egypt might use fava beans. They won't use them because they know that people are allergic to them.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
And it's the same with hummus. But I personally feel that hummus should be hummus, and that it should be warm, and you should do it flat. Don't put it in a bowl. Do it in a flat plate.
Do you
and
have a little well in the center?
a little bit with where I put my olive oil. I don't.
Yeah.
And I like doing a lot of lemon and doing preserved lemon, which makes a totally different flavor. But I don't like the broccoli hummus and all that other kind of hummus. It's like hummus is simple, and I don't think it should be warm. But the thing. I mean, it shouldn't be cold. The only thing is that we don't have that luxury of just leaving it out overnight. We're afraid to. So, and it should be gone. It should,
Right.
like,
What do you mean overnight? What overnight? Don't go to bed till it's wiped clean.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make hummus without tahini? Like someone asked, if you don't have tahini, is there a way around that?
well, the ancient hummus did not have, the sesame seeds did not come to the Middle East. I don't know exactly when they came, but originally there were no sesame seeds.
Right.
Therefore, everyone in the Middle East had their own hummus in the ancient world. And I'm talking about 2500 BC and earlier. So they would have just done a pounded puree, mortar and pestle, because it's easier to scoop it up that way.
Right.
And it's changed from like a soup or whatever. And they might have put a little bit of vinegar in or a little bit of water in because it gets thick very quickly.
Yeah.
But they did not have sesame seed.
So try to make it without.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Why not? And then do you feel do you need to take the skins off? That's controversial into itself.
I want to hear
right?
what Daniel says. This is what I think. I know, like Ruth Reichel, she told me she absolutely will only keep them on now that she knows how to do it. I don't agree with that. I think that if you soften them enough, I mean, if you want to take some of them off, they will come off. And the baking soda is a way of getting the loosening the shells or the pods, right? Because they're a legume, to come off. So you can if you want to, but I don't think you need to. What do you think, Danielle?
Yeah, baking soda is a great trick, and then at the end of the cooking process, you basically can skim out a lot of the pod, sheds and floats. Basically, you end up removing quite a bit of it through the cooking process. Right, using baking soda, so you don't have to hand separate them, which is a huge task, but like anything, well worth the experience.
I've tried
of
to get
getting that
every
material.
skin off. It would take forever. I did my best.
It's nuts. I mean, it's extremely challenging, especially in the commercial culinary setting. But the baking soda is phenomenal, and it works very well. My uncle Shimon, who lives in Western Galilee on a kibbutz called Rosh Hanikah. It's right near the Lebanese border in the Western Galilee. It's also a beautiful wide region and a phenomenal agricultural part of Israel. He specified using Bulgarian chickpea. They're much smaller. They're tiny compared to what you think of a standard chickpea, and that's what we sourced to use as far as a Bulgarian, organic Bulgarian chickpea.
I have two questions for you. Do you I think they're called degi, DEGI, the small ones, and the larger ones are uli?
I think so.
Yeah, and the kibbutz chickpeas are big, and the Arabs love using those kibbutz. They call them kibbutz chickpeas, and that's what the major one is used in Israel. But do you use the small ones or larger ones?
The small ones.
Where do you get them?
There's a couple purveyors to get them from. There's a few bulk wholesale vendors. Golden Organics is one of them here in, not Lakewood, just outside Denver. And there's another wholesale dry goods distributor. I don't know if they have a consumer-facing side. I believe Golden Organics, you can go to the warehouse direct and pick up, or they'll ship.
So they're well, I can't do that, but anyway, but there are two. So there are two kinds. But you think, because Erez Komarovsky, who's I think one of the best chefs in Israel, he likes the smaller ones. I mean, everybody talks about how you make hummus in Israel. The other thing
Right.
I want to ask you, how long do you cook your chickpeas?
Yeah.
A really long time. I mean, you basically get them. You know, you want them to almost become a paste in essence. Very easily once you start blending them that first mash. It takes a very long time. I mean, you have a pot simmering. You can soak them ahead of time, which is also a great trick from a kitchen perspective. To leave them soaking overnight, you don't have to do that. I think that's a great maneuver to do with beans in general, personally. But it takes depending on temperature of your BTU on your stove. If you're doing a giant 60 steel pot on a spread across a couple of the big jet burner and like a stock burner that you would use in a commercial kitchen. 90 minutes, sometimes it takes a while to get that perfect smash, and then once you do that puree, it like blends into this beautiful paste, and then you use that as your base to then jump into the next phase of the hummus process. But that's another great way because it keeps it warm as you're blending it, and then when you finish the hummus, it's at all the perfect eating temperature.
Do you use a pressure cooker ever, Daniel? Because you're in a restaurant, but from a home perspective in Colorado, we use a pressure cooker because we find we just get more consistent results, and it's obviously faster.
Yeah, pressure
Some
cookers
batches
are
of chickpeas
fantastic.
you could cook forever, and you'll never really get there.
But if you're cooking like a pound, let's say.
Right. We still use a pressure cooker.
I just use. It takes me like 45 minutes to get them really soft.
Mm-hmm.
That's because I'm.
Do you soak them first?
What?
Do you
I
soak them first?
soak them over. What I do, this is my trick, okay? When I get the chickpeas from the grocery store, the first thing I do when I come home is I put them in a big bowl, and then I put water on them, and overnight. And I might not be making chickpeas, but I'll put them in 2 cup bags, and then when I want to make peas, I just boil them.
So they're soaked already, you drain them, and then you freeze them.
Yeah, that's what I do. And the other thing I do is
That's smart.
I take a lemon and I freeze the lemon, and I might do that exactly when I put them in the my chickpeas in the water. So I'll freeze it overnight. Then I'll take it out, and it'll defrost, and I'll just easily pull off the pip, and then I can use the pulp and the lemon juice, and that that'll get pulverized, and it's healthier, and you're using the whole lemon.
Whoa.
That's cool.
That's the price of admission right here.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a good trick. I like
Thank you, everyone. We have now, no, I'm just kidding.
Right.
We're done. No,
But soaking cuts down your cooking time considerably.
Yeah.
Right. So that's because all these chefs are saying 2.5 hours, and I
They might be at altitude like we are.
maybe
It does take longer here, I will say. Definitely takes longer than 45 minutes, especially if you haven't soaked them. God forbid.
No. I've soaked them overnight. Actually,
that
I soaked them 2 days, but you can't really soak them 2 days because then they start sprouting.
Right.
Well, and I've heard some people say you have to spend money buying the already hulled chickpeas because then you don't have to worry about the skins. But I have not found that to be true, and I've never. You can just use regular chickpeas. What's your stance on canned chickpeas?
I don't like using them. I just why? I don't like. I don't like canned anything. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and
Is
I'm-
it preservatives? I mean, or
yeah, it's
lack of
preservative,
control over the
right?
texture?
And they're, yeah, exactly. And they're, sometimes they're like, I roasted chickpeas tonight, but actually these were chickpeas I found in my freezer that were already cooked, but they would
So
have
you can
been
also freeze cooked chickpeas, like not just soaked, but cooked also.
yeah, because you can throw them. I mean, I use chickpeas as they did in the ancient world, like spinach and chickpeas, and either alone or with pasta is really good. And
Hmm.
chickpeas, especially now when we don't want to eat so much meat,
Yep.
you can just throw them and you get protein. You can throw these roasted chickpeas that I have now that I've figured out how to do it. I'm just going to throw them in salads.
Well,
Uh,
wait, you figured out how do you roast your chickpeas?
well, I took 400-degree oven, and I
Okay.
just put them on parchment paper with a little bit of olive oil and salt.
Okay.
And then just I looked in books and they said to do it for about 20 minutes, but I did it for close to 40 minutes.
Did you
And then,
dry them out before?
yeah,
Or-
I dry them out. I dry them out with paper towels. Sorry, I didn't say that. Yeah. And then what I did was I love Aleppo pepper. So I put Aleppo pepper on it in a little cube because a
Sounds
lot of
good.
them are too, I, I think they're too spicy for me. Because I see them at lots of stores now. And this to me is a little bit gentler.
Okay. Well, now Daniel, you walk us through your hummus preparation, and your steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Aleppo pepper. It's phenomenal, and it's the foundational component of muhammara, a traditional Syrian walnut and pepper
I
dish.
love that.
It's so good. It's so good. But by weight ratio of tahina to chickpea. When I say it to people, I think I wrote one recipe where I said add an uncomfortable amount of tahina to the chickpea base. Inevitably someone's there adding it, and they're like, this is crazy, and I'm like, if it feels crazy, keep going. Same thing with olive oil. But you basically have your chickpea puree that you've done after the cooking
Cooked
process.
chickpeas. Right.
Another great addition is to basically confit garlic in olive oil and then strain up the garlic, and then you have this beautiful garlic oil. So you can use that as the oil that you then put back into the hummus, which is a great way to get a softer garlic note that you would get from just using raw garlic, and gives it that round expression, and that fatty richness of the olive oil then blends in that garlic note, in a very consistent manner. Of course, just adding cloves of garlic won't necessarily get that same textural consistency as using a garlic oil. Toasted cumin seeds, toasted and then ground. I'm a huge advocate for basic toasting and prepping your own whole spices and then grinding them. You get one of those little coffee grinders. They're like $15. Never use it for coffee, just use it for your spices, and that's a great little trick at home to get beautiful flavor notes. You toast cumin seeds in a pan until they release some oils and get this beautiful fragrance, and you'll know exactly when that happens. And then you pull them, and then throw them right in that little grinder, give them a pulse, and then you've got beautiful toasted powdered fresh cumin powder, and then add that in. Sea salt, lemon, and just basically keep adjusting for acidity, salt, and then texture. Basically, we're using that machine that he had in that restaurant that just looked amazing. Was really fantastic.
The one kind of pulling it like a donut,
yeah,
it's
fantastic. Yeah, it's like a giant,
like
box that he was
overflowing.
standing over, and
Yeah,
it was amazing. It had that pulse was pulling it back down.
I loved it.
What was that? Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Like a big emulsion. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Well,
phenomenal.
they were throwing peppers in there. In fact, we have a question. Do you guys have a stance on the fact that that one place has jalapenos in their hummus?
That sounds
Really
delicious.
nice. Well, I just got a recipe for, is it called masquahar, which is warm hummus with um, a jalapeno pepper and a lot of garlic mashed together.
Sounds
So
good.
I had never heard of it before, and there it was, and traditional restaurant from Jerusalem. I think it was Lena's
Yeah, maybe.
that had
That
that.
sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, it seems to me, tell me if I'm wrong, Joan thinks hummus should be quite simple, and that is one way to do it, but then you can also top it with a gajillion things. You can put jalapeno in it, you can put cumin in it, you could put Aleppo pepper in it. It seems like a canvas.
Right. Well, look, and I'm saying I
Yeah.
like it simple, but I put preserved lemon in it.
Right.
It
See?
just adds the flavor.
Preserved lemon is a magical ingredient, I will
Yeah.
say.
It-
Someone
it
has
is.
asked, can hummus be your whole dinner?
Yes,
What do you think?
Yeah.
completely. Hummus and pita, I think, is just a phenomenal meal in itself.
Warm,
Maybe some pickles just to kind of brighten things up
Yeah,
a little.
break it up a little bit because it does get a little rich. And,
Yeah.
it's it's part of a mezza,
Right,
which is just a
usually.
tradition, all different kinds of little dishes. I mean, I remember one of my earliest memories, and when I lived in Israel, was we went to Ramallah, and we just had so many little dishes just sitting outside, and they made at this restaurant called Naum, and they made their own bread, and it was, I loved going to Arab restaurants. That's what I really loved doing when I lived there.
I think that style of eating is so convivial and communal, and everyone's taking a little bit of everything. I hope we can get back to that. What do you guys think about that, actually, in this moment, in the light of COVID-19 and all these worries about proximity and
Right.
sharing food? Do you worry about those traditions and that
They're
food
gone.
culture going away?
I think they're gone for a while. I was thinking about the same thing, that
The
you would
wiping,
always
right?
get like one dessert, right?
Yeah, right.
And then everybody would eat from it.
Or share an appetizer, and then, yeah. And hummus is such a communal thing.
yeah, you dip and you smear and you reach and
Yeah.
it's there's definitely going to be a shift in that experience, especially in dining out. But as far as the family meal experience goes, that shouldn't change or be deeply affected, depending on what your living situation is. But inevitably, having that shared meal with your family and having that experience, literally of breaking bread, should be relentlessly pursued regardless of what situations are unfolding in the external world.
But I think that with the COVID virus, I just came back from 53 days with one of my children in New Orleans,
Mm.
and I found that I slowed down in doing things, and hummus was a perfect thing for me to make when I was slowing down,
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to really pay attention, which sometimes when I'm on my high energy me, I don't do.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the best hummus I'd ever made. And I've been making hummus for a long time.
Oh, that's a lovely
That's
way
great.
to look at it, right?
I wanted to do a mortar and pestle, but I wasn't I could not do it with a mortar and pestle. This friend of mine,
That's a
Eric,
commitment.
it's a
Yeah.
real commitment. So I went back to my, I used her, that's where I used the Vitamix, and it was just perfect.
I think that's fair. I'd be worried about my shoulder,
Right.
endurance for that. I mean, watching them with the mortar pestle, that would take a very long time, I would say.
Yes.
And I've been beating egg whites with my hand because my daughter didn't have.
I don't do that.
And let me tell you something. It doesn't take long at all, and I felt really as if I'd accomplished something.
You had in your muscle strength too. We should talk about pita for a minute. This is a movie about hummus, but they go together, right? And we actually have a question too about hummus makers in Jerusalem, in Lebanon. Do they typically make their own pita?
Absolutely.
Daniel, do you make your own pita? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole concept of craftsmanship comes from a place of trying to do as many things as possible within reason, literally with your hands. I mean, cooking professionally is one of, and personally, but the act of cooking is one of the few remaining things that is still a craft that needs to be done with these. So as many opportunities we have to utilize the beauty of being human and cooking with love and then passing on that energy along with the cuisine to someone else is one of the most noble gestures, I think, of just kindness and taking care of others. So I think baking bread in general is one of the most brilliant ways to express that in its simplest and purest form. When you talk about connecting with things biblically, I mean, making your own flatbread and then giving it to someone to tear open and enjoy is, one of the greatest elements of the human. And sharing with stranger. So that's why we make every day. We're using I think 8.5 years old. We're using local Colorado honey. We have a wood oven fueled with oak, white oak that is usually 650 degrees. And watching that dough burst into this beautiful pillow of joy in 40 seconds is pretty remarkable.
It is the most fun bread to bake, I think.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's a great flatbread. You can do it at home in an oven if you get a high enough heat. There's little tricks you can do. You can use a pizza stone. Crank your oven to 500 degrees, let it hang out there for a while, and there's a few different. I mean, my mom made pita growing up all the time. I mean, it was just something that is a great recipe in general to mess around with as a flatbread. And a variation of it very easily makes a phenomenal pizza crust. So you can do legendary styles of bread at the same time that you can use in multiple applications. So I think making hummus and making pita are just two parts of the same equation, and then you bring them together in this harmonious moment at the table at the same time.
Well, and also that goes back to the Bible too.
I was going to say, what's the history, Joan?
Flatbreads that were brought to the temple in Jerusalem, there were 12 flatbreads, and they were put, and I'll tell you something else. They were put in the oven. That was before Jews learned to make challah from the Eastern European, probably from Russians, because the Russians learned to make that sweet twisted bread from a Swiss baker in a town, and the Tsar brought him to Russia, and so it was for the Sabbath, and Jews learned to do that in Russia, and then they brought it back. But also, let me just think. I was thinking about the ancient world.
Where pita does it have an origin, a place of origin? I mean, that was the whole movie, right? Where does hummus come from, and who owns it? Does pita have?
I don't think it. I think it's the earliest bread that people made.
Yeah.
And I know what I was going to say to you. I mean, it was originally, it had no yeast. But then when yeast came from Egypt, then it had yeast and it was puffing up. But I was once trying to reconstitute what the early Passover Seders were like. And we realized the only way to do it was to go to a Bedouin tent, to visit the Bedouins. And the Bedouins would have them, they would take it like it was an upside down wok, and they would take water and flour and put it on the wok, and then they'd serve the lamb in it. So it was this big, I mean, and we've seen these very thin breads in all these Middle Eastern grocery stores. So I asked them, why didn't they use yeast? And they said, yeast is a contaminant. You are our guests. We don't want to have anything, because yeast, it's
alive.
It's alive, and they want to do something that's pure. And that's why they did not originally have yeast in the bread for the temple of Jerusalem. So these are things that, we
Wow.
all go back to the same beginnings. And that's where it was. And if you go down to the Dead Sea in Qumran, you'll see all kinds of, what do you call it, calcified chickpeas from the ancient world.
Well, and I thought was interesting, this whole origin, this war, right? And who owns it? Do you guys think can a people own a food?
No, I don't think so. Well, there are regional differences, but everybody had hummus in the Middle East. Everybody did.
Joan, you're such a wealth of knowledge. I just love listening to you and reading your words as well. I mean, you do such a beautiful deep dive into so many elements of cooking in general. But I think food is a huge cultural identity, but it's meant to be shared. That's the whole purpose. So I think trying to stick a flag in the ground when you reach the moon, I mean, it's everyone's moon, right? I mean, that's the way I see it. So it's the world's hummus.
Right, it's the world's hummus. Yeah.
And that is how he ended it, right? That is how Trevor Graham, the director, ended it.
I thought he did a really good job, by the way.
I agree too. That movie was fun to watch. I learned so much. I was so hungry by the end of it for hummus.
Yeah.
I think it was successful.
And some poignant political statements as well as, perceptions change. And, I wrote down one quote that the Palestinian gentleman had said. He said, doing this allows me to live with dignity, and it allows me to live an honest life. And that's such a beautiful statement about what this all comes down to is, everyone's just trying to experience some level of dignity and live an honest life. And if that involves making a product that is the result of a cultural expression going back thousands and thousands of years, that's a beautiful thing. It should be a point of conflict. It should be a point of connection.
Well, and did you notice the restaurateurs the chefs all seem to want or believe that hummus could bring people together? No matter who owned it. We just want everyone to eat. They said, if you eat together, there are no borders. But the politicians did not feel that way.
Right. Very true. Yes.
Well, and I think that brings us back to what's happening today, that people that are really in the food world, like Daniel and other people, they really want to feed people.
Yes.
And they're so frustrated that they can't feed people in the proper way, because we're all social beings and we want to sit down and eat together. I mean, I'm alone right now, and I'll eat, but I always.
It's not the same.
But it isn't the same. I mean,
right.
We all would love. I would love to go to Daniel's restaurant and have dinner with him.
It'd be great. Come on over.
There is no one better to break bread with than Daniel Asher. I can attest to that, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Well,
but it's a delicate time, and the ability to nourish table side has been removed from the equation. So how do you still give those touches of love when someone is anonymously opening up a container? An unknown amount of time after the food even been prepared. I mean, that's been, the whole dance, the ballet in a kitchen is a rhythm, and it's timing, and it's a flow. So, we've lost the ability to define at what time from completion the meal is enjoyed, how it's enjoyed, checking in on the guests to make sure everything's unfolding properly. All of those things have been removed, and now it's just, beautiful, high-intention food in a, little container that could be eaten an hour after it leaves the pan. So it's a different moment in time, but inevitably we're all navigating it with a high level of desire for taking care of people. That will never change. Just the medium and the way we express that has shifted, but the desire and the intention is stronger than ever.
Except I think it's coming back. I mean, because of coronavirus, and it's going to go on for a long time, the New York Times staff is not coming back until past Labor Day.
Until when?
Past Labor Day. That's what they think now.
They've said that already? Past Labor Day?
Already.
Wow.
But we're all working at home.
Yeah.
And but I think that what's happening is people are really cooking and they're taking chances because they've got the time to cook, which they never did before. You know, how many people are making bread?
Oh, so many.
So many.
So
So
that's
many.
the good thing about it. But it, you
Yeah.
know, going to New Orleans and getting a carry out, whatever you get, I mean, it's just not the same.
It's not, but I will, if I can attest to the way it feels to bring home a big bag of food from Ashkara. And there is something still special, Daniel. Well, just so you know, I mean, so there are all these containers, right? Little plastic containers. And I pulled
Yeah.
them out of the bag and taking the lid off each one. It's so different than eating at a restaurant and having someone bring you your food fresh from the
Right.
kitchen. But all the colors and the textures, and you unwrap them and then there's spread before you, and there is still something very special, and I felt very taken care of, just the way they were packaged, and it was, you know, thoughtful for the guest, and so I'm still finding pleasure in that, even though I miss going to restaurants so
Oh,
much.
that's
Great. Yes.
great. Well, I look forward to going back to restaurants with you. I'm just,
Restaurants are the best, the best.
Yes. The best.
And I want to thank you both so much. I know it's so late where you are in DC, Joan. It's very late. And I know we're already over time, and I hope that that's okay with everybody. There are still more questions, and they get very specific about hummus. So maybe we'll figure out a way on social media to get those answered. But I want to thank you both very much for participating and allowing me to ask you questions and funnel questions to you and being a part of this discussion.
Yeah, thank you to the Flatiron Film Festival for providing the opportunity to do this very engaging film and to connect everyone against food, which is one of the best ways to connect.
yeah, I
So thank
love
you so
that.
much. And Joan, it's a pleasure to see you and be able to share this with you.
Well, it's my pleasure too. And I also think I love the idea of sharing food with everybody when you have a film.
Yes.
And I'm going to suggest it to the Smithsonian.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, it's a great idea.
Yes.
I've had a great time. I think this has been really fun. And we've had lots of good questions. And everyone is saying thank you for your insight and perspective. And this was just a treat, a total treat. And
Thank
I
you
have
so
a
much.
thank you both. I have some housekeeping things. Thank you to all the people who have bought tickets and who have joined us tonight to watch the movie and then kind of have this discussion. I want to encourage everyone to tune in next Friday when Hot Doug's, the movie, is going to be filming. Tickets are on sale now. And also, there will be a survey sent to everybody who participated tonight because your feedback is really helpful in putting together programming for the Flatirons Food Film Festival and also to help the festival receive grants. So thank you very much to everybody for participating. This was a treat all around. I hope you all have a really good night and stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks.